Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. My name is Aaron. I'm delighted to be joined here by Matthew Hurley from the Gaelic Statsman. We're here to review yesterday's ladies football final in which Dublin beat Kerry by a scoreline of 18 points to 110. We're going to break down the game in detail, discuss the big talking points, discuss the big moments. We will briefly touch on the intermediate and junior finals, which obviously happened in Croke Park yesterday as well. But we'll mainly be focused on the All-Ireland final. We will be looking at some other GA news stories as well. Obviously, Kieran McGeeney staying put with Armagh was definitely a big talking point last week. And we'll also be discussing as well the news that Off the Ball deciding to put everything behind the paywall and maybe just have a bit of a general chit-chat about, I suppose, a lot of streaming services, even with club championships and everything. There's some crazy prices going around for club championships. GA goes on the rise. So we might just have a general chit-chat maybe about that as well. But I suppose, first of all, Matthew, the inter-county season's officially over. It's officially done. So, yeah, it's mad to think.
It is, yeah, Aaron, and thanks for having me on again. And the rants from about Kerry and all that from Cork and Dublin supporters here, it's all done. All done, inter-county season, all done, and we'll focus on club now. And it's actually, funny enough, the Carlow hurling final was yesterday, and that's done now when the inter-county season is done. And that's just mad. And Seamus was talking to me about this the other day, like, why can't they, be simultaneous to every other county championship? Because Mount Leinster Rangers now are going to just go into the Leinster Championship in cold, and they're not going to get brilliant championship experience. And yeah, it's poor really. Actually, the Wexford final is on Sunday as well, so they're going to struggle in Leinster. It's mad. It really is mad. But yeah, and the Kerry final actually finished as well in hurling, so all of them are put out of the way now. But yeah, I suppose it's down to every county board. They play at different times and things like that. And it won't suit everybody, but it suits them. But yeah, it's all good anyway. And yeah, the latest finals yesterday, very entertaining final. Brilliant that for yourself that Dublin won yesterday. Kind of upsetting from a Kerry point of view. Louise Ní Rohrhurtig lost that All-Ireland despite being top scorer of every chart this season. Wasn't enough this season as Dublin got another Brendan Martin Cup. So yeah, I'm sure you're happy with the men's and the women's doing the football double this year.
Yeah, as I said to you off air, like beating Kerry in an All-Ireland final twice in the space of 3 weeks, it doesn't get much better than that. If we could continue this trend, beating Kerry in All-Ireland finals, and no matter what the code is, like, that would be absolutely brilliant. But no, I agree with you as well about club championships. Like, I'm actually working on a video at the moment predicting every club senior hurling championship that should be out in the next few days, and it's just really annoying because it's like a few of them are already going to be over, and it's like, I don't know, I'm just going to have to cut them out or do a voiceover or something like that. It's just really frustrating. But yeah, like, it would be so much better if they could just push them later in the year. Like, even the Dublin Football Championship as well, starting a week after like the All-Ireland Championship final, like 2 weeks after the All-Ireland. I really do wish they would spread them out a little bit more, but at the same time, you understand it from a player's point of view. Get the championship over and done with, and then obviously they can have their holidays and everything else later in the year. But yeah, we'll obviously look at the final. So it was Dublin 18 points, Kerry 110, as we said. Dublin outstanding, especially in the first half. Hannah Tyrrell given an absolute masterclass of display. 8 points in total, 4 points from play, all of which came in the first half. And yeah, what a top-class performance from Dublin. And unfortunately for Kerry, like, they threatened to make a game of it late on, but ultimately a dominant win in the end for Dublin.
Yeah, brilliant display. And Hannah Tyrrell, as you rightly said there, brilliant performance, especially in the first half. 8 points, 4 from play. It's probably, like we talked about last weekend at the Camogie, is Amy O'Connor's performance for Cork one of the best in an All-Ireland final. I think Hannah Tyrrell has actually put herself up there now. An incredible performance herself. Yeah, brilliant showing in general. But in fairness, Carla Rowe did very well. I know she was starved of possession in the first half, but in the second half she really lit up. Orla Nolan was brilliant. And we talk about Mick Fitzsimons in the men's game doing well on David Clifford. Leah Caffrey did an outstanding job for Dublin yesterday. Like, there was one photo of her just not wrestling the ball away from a Kerry forward, and she was definitely up for it in that game. Abby Shields in goal, and let's not forget, she's replacing one of the best ladies football goalkeepers of all time, really, in Ciara Trant. So she's had an absolutely amazing year in general. Laura McGee, brilliant performance. Jennifer Dunn, brilliant performance. But there was a few things I actually didn't know. I didn't know, first of all, Jennifer Dunn's midfield partner I forget her name now, Eilish O'Dowd, I think it is. She's actually from Leitrim. I didn't realise that until yesterday, and the power of Twitter made me realise it, as well as that it's Hannah Tyrrell's first All-Ireland title, and we said it off air. I actually didn't realise it. I thought she was so good that she'd probably win 3-4 All-Irelands, but it just probably just shows how long she spent playing Irish rugby and things like that. And just the thing on Hannah Tyrrell, actually, she's won a Six Nations, she's won a Triple Crown in rugby, she's won an FAI Cup, and she's won the All-Irelands. Like, I don't know who would actually have a more complete list of honours than Hannah Tyrrell in the sporting world. It's absolutely incredible. And yesterday to Marty Morrissey, she said the All-Ireland tops the whole lot. That says it all, really, when GA is kind of an amateur sport. Maybe it's because she's on the Sunday game, I don't know. But the fact she actually said that for an amateur sport, I think was brilliant. And she spent time with her kid as well towards the end of the game. And despite Bernard Casey's tweet, no, she did not give birth 7 weeks ago with her partner. So that would be brushed under the carpet there. I think everybody was kind of thinking the same thing. But yeah, it was a brilliant moment with her, the child at the end. Carla Rowe was nearly in tears lifting up the trophy as well. I think Mick Bohan deserves a lot of credit. We said it a few weeks ago after the Cork game. He's lost, I don't know how many players over the last few months or a year or so. Niamh McAvoy, Noelle Healy, Lindsay Davey, Ciara Trant, Sinead Goldrick, and the list goes on. And he still won the All-Irelands with this group of players, this group of young players. And he deserves a lot of credit for that. But for Kerry, I think it's an upsetting end to the year, which promised so much for Kerry in general. Like Louise de Verhertig was absolutely outstanding again yesterday, scoring 1-7, dragging Kerry back to the game. Niamh Carmody had a very good game, and honestly, I think Kerry missed that other spark up front, Siobhan O'Shea. I know she came on towards the end of the game, but that ACL injury kind of ruined Kerry's chances in the final, and ultimately they lost the game. Katie Cronin had an outstanding year and still played well enough in parts yesterday, but they were just beaten by the better team yesterday, and Dublin definitely deserved the victory. But let's not forget, Kerry have had an outstanding year as well, and brilliant ladies football championship in general. And yeah, we have some brilliant contenders for next season. You look at, Meath might be gone off the ball a small bit, but you look at Kerry, you look at Dublin, Galway are coming, the underage is coming there. You hope that Cork come up through the ranks in the next few years as well. So yeah, the ladies football championship looks very good in the next few years, but Dublin look like the cream that's rising to the top because of the players, the young exuberant players other than Carla Rowe and Hannah Tyrrell and Mick Bohan is building up.
Yeah, a friend of the channel on Cliff says, well, lads, what a game. Thoughts on Hannah Tyrrell being player of the month just 7 weeks after giving birth. Absolutely crazy achievement. Yeah. I don't think she did. She definitely didn't give birth, I'm pretty sure.
No. It was her partner. Just for clarity, no. It was her partner, Sorka Turnbull, that gave birth, not Hannah Tyrrell. I don't know why. Yeah. Well, that's probably. I think everybody would easily get mixed up by that, to be honest with you. But that's the facts of the matter. Bernard Casey got into the trap, and apparently so did Seamus. So, Seamus, hopefully you've heard something there. But yeah, overall though, giving birth or not, it was a brilliant performance by Hannah Tyrrell in general. 8 points in an All-Ireland final in the first half alone, superb, and she's the ultimate sportswoman.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and even the list of achievements you mentioned there, like before, and obviously now going on to win the All-Ireland as well. And obviously, as you were mentioning, like in her post-match interview, she's talking about the All-Ireland win being the best achievement she's achieved so far. And that probably shows the hunger of the Dublin team in many ways, because like there was definitely something different about this Dublin side from about the quarter-final onwards, like the level of hunger that they played with. And even at the start of the first half as well, like we just looked completely on it from the get-go, and you could really see the want in a lot of the Dublin players. And maybe in a similar fashion to the men's, like obviously having not won it since 2020, obviously Dublin losing the final 2 years ago to their big rivals Meath, getting caught out to Donegal. Like I heard Hannah Tyrrell talking about that in the post-match interview as well. That really did upset them and hurt them. And I think a lot of people wrote Dublin off coming into this season, coming into this championship, and I think they had a chip on their shoulder, and I think that ultimately was what paid dividends, because the amount of hunger that they've played with, not just in this game but from the quarterfinal onwards, has been outstanding. Like they've looked like a completely different team to what they were throughout the majority of the season.
And to be honest, it was every aspect of the game, really, defensively and offensively. Like attack-wise, they hit, I think, an accuracy of 75% against Cork in the semi-final. I failed for the tweet as well. Oh, Seamus. But yeah, back to aside from comedic matters, we'll focus on Dublin. The ladies producing a brilliant performance for now. But as I was saying there, the attack was absolutely outstanding. Like in the semi-final against Cork, it was 75% accuracy, 69% yesterday. Incredible performance. 13 points for play. And let's remind our viewers that was in a 60-minute game. It was incredible for Dublin. Imagine if that was a 70-minute game with Seamus actually, credit to him, makes the point over and over again with ladies football compared to men's football. And as well as that, they scored 218 for play in the semi-final against Cork and against Donegal as well. They were outstanding in shot accuracy, every aspect of play. They dominated Donegal from pillar to post. That was the three most important games of the season. And Dublin dominated really Donegal, Cork, and Kerry really out to the last few minutes when Louise Never-Hurtig drove on her teammates in a way. But the thing is as well, Dublin knew how to slow the game down. And that's what champions do. Like you look at the foul count, they had 30 fouls against Donegal and against Cork. They had nearly 30 fouls against Kerry. That's just the way they play. It's the way they played. It's on the edge. I know a lot of people will complain about it, but it's smart play, I have to say. They're not fouling in scoreable positions now. They're fouling way out around the opposition 65-metre line. You know, and that's what makes good champions, knowing when to foul and how to foul. And Dublin, they perfected that over the last few years, and they're definitely the standard bearers for tackling, for game management, and they're an outstanding team for that. Laura McGee's had an outstanding year. Jennifer Dunn's been colossal in midfield. Ailish O'Dowd has been brilliant. I know Jennifer Dunn probably takes all the plaudits. She scored 11 points overall in the championship, but Ailish O'Dowd has to take some plaudits as well. Outstanding in her first year in the Dublin shirt. Orla Nolan was brilliant. Caoimhe O'Connor didn't score much in the championship, but she was still working hard for the team. Kate Sullivan, she scored 5 goals coming into the final, but she was starved off that attacking possession yesterday, but she still worked for the team. Those Dublin players, same as the men's in many ways, they work for each other, and that's why they're all Ireland champions. And yeah, they produced it at the right stages of the year, the quarter-final, the semi-final, the final, when it all matters. Dublin came to the fore, and that was what's the difference between a great side and a good side. Kerry will be a great side in the next few years, I'm sure. Hopefully, from Louise Never-Hurtig's point of view, I hope she gets it All Ireland. But I think in the next few years, Kerry are building something, and they will get an All Ireland sooner rather than later. But for now, Dublin, they're just an outstanding team, and they were brilliant throughout the 3 games, the games that matter most.
Absolutely. And how good was Leah Caffrey at fullback? I mean, an immense performance, like especially in the first half as well, like some of the blocks, the challenges. You could see Kerry, I suppose they'd fallen a good bit behind, like the gap was 6 points at one stage in the first half. And it looked like Kerry looked like they were really well focused on going for goals just to sort of get themselves back into the game. But the amount of late challenges, the amount of tackles that were going in, like from the entire Dublin fullback line in general, but Leah Caffrey was immense.
Yeah, she was, and very similar to the Mick Fitzsimons performance of the men's a couple of weeks ago. And I think one image, I think from Sportsfile actually epitomised how good Leah Caffrey was. If anybody's seen her on social media, she was literally wrestling the ball off a Kerry player. She wanted this. She wanted this All Ireland this season, and nothing was going to stand in her way. She was absolutely outstanding in the full back line. Martha Byrne played her bit in the full back line as well. Brilliant performance by her. Niamh Donlan in her first year of intercounty football. Lauren McGee. Like the defence in general were very, very good this year. Niamh Crowley, another one. Dublin just wanted it more than Kerry yesterday, and that was the difference between the sides. But Leah Caffrey definitely stood head and shoulders into the defensive line yesterday for Dublin. She was absolutely outstanding. But yeah, she was absolutely brilliant. Abby Shields behind her in goal was brilliant as well, and nearly in her first year. I think she's maybe 19, 20 years of age as a goalkeeper. And, you know, she needed a bit of guidance. And Leah Caffrey was the most experienced player nearly in the back line, other than Martha Byrne, possibly Lauren McGee as well. And she led that back line from the front all throughout the championship and not just yesterday. She was absolutely outstanding, and she definitely deserves a lot of plaudits for her performance, but as do all of the Dublin backline. They were absolutely brilliant in general. The young players, the most experienced players, they work together as a team, and that's what they did over the last few years. That's how they won the 4 in a row, and that's how they won this All Ireland yesterday. They were brilliant in that aspect of the game, and Leah Caffrey was absolutely outstanding and definitely up there for player of the match yesterday. I could get why Hannah Tyrrell got it. Outstanding performance, 8 points in one half of football is just absurd. But Leah Caffrey, equally was absolutely superb yesterday, and probably was a close second for the player of the match award.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and what do you think changed for Dublin maybe from the quarterfinal onwards? Because like up until that point, there had been inconsistency. Like we lost to Kerry obviously earlier in the year. Throughout the league, I mean, we weren't at our brilliant best, you would say. Is it a case maybe a bit like the men's where Dublin have waited until the quarterfinal stage to really peak, and they've sort of just bided their time, waited until the knockout games came? Or what you reckon? Or what do you reckon has changed for Dublin in sort of leading them on to win this All-Ireland? Because they've done it, when you actually look at the 3 games, they've actually done it fairly convincingly.
They have done, yeah. In fairness, the final was tighter than people maybe have expected earlier on in the game. But when you look at the semi-final and the quarter-final in particular for Dublin, they were absolute processions. The Donegal game, actually, I was talking to Seamus before that, and he was really, really worried going into that game. And Dublin just pushed them aside at ease. It was a brilliant performance from Dublin. And when you look at the Cork game as well, like that could have been a banana skin down at Semple Stadium, Thurles, but Dublin turned it on from the minute go. In that semi-final, they scored 2:18 from play in 60 minutes. Like, a men's team would be proud of that in 70 minutes. Like, this is monstrous form. You know, it's absolutely incredible. I know some of the teams probably didn't perform to their utmost against Dublin, but Dublin didn't let them. They were just colossal throughout them 3 games. Maybe against Cavan in the group stage, they put them away at ease as well. And maybe the second at half-time against Kerry, maybe that changed their season up in Parnell Park. Kerry were way ahead at half-time. Dublin mounted a bit of a comeback. They didn't come back all the way towards the end of the game. There was a lot of flack towards Mick Bohan towards the game. Unfairly so. They definitely recovered in that game afterwards against Cavan, and their season took off from there. But it's definitely like the men's team. It's nearly parallel seasons in many ways. Because when you look at Dublin in men's, they picked up form in the quarterfinal against Mayo in that second half colossal performance. Dublin picked up form really in that quarterfinal win over Donegal, which could have been a banana skin. And then in the semi-final, both the men's and the women's were absolutely outstanding. And then the final, they beat Kerry. Look, it's just coincidental, but it's just parallel routes in many ways. But as well as that for Dublin as well, throughout the championship, they averaged a concession rate of a goal, 0 goals. That's incredible. I think it was 0 goals and 7 points coming into the game. And even the goal they conceded for Louise Devore-Hurtig, that was just a small error, I think, from Laura McGeeney towards the end of the game. Maybe it was just tiredness. But that was towards the end. I think it was 4 minutes to go at that point. And that's when they really let Kerry in at that time. So Dublin's defence, I think, has been the trademark throughout the whole year, and that has been the standing point on why they've won the All-Ireland, as well as the forwards. Like, they've done absolutely brilliant, especially Kate Sullivan, Cara Rowe and Hannah Tyrrell, but just outstanding. The midfielders have been very good. The defence has been very good. It's just been an all-round excellent team performance from Dublin in general, and that's why they've won the All-Ireland. And as I said, with the men's and women's, it's almost like they were going in parallel routes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I suppose we talk about the credit that Hannah Tyrrell deserves and Leah Caffrey, Carla Rowe, but one man who's not getting enough credit is Mick Bohan. Obviously, I think this is his 5th All-Ireland now that he's won in charge of the Dublin ladies. Like, I mean, where does he rank in terms of the great managers out there? Because I think people forget, like, he was a part of Jim Gavin's team back in 2013. I think he might have been a selector under Pat Gilroy as well. He was definitely a part of some underage teams. Like, so where does he rank in terms of managers out there? And like, in my opinion, look, I think after winning the All-Ireland, I think Desi is definitely going to be staying on for the next couple of years. But if there ever comes a time where he needs to step away, I think Mick Bohan could very well be the man to potentially go in there. But I suppose, first of all, where does he rank in your opinion amongst some of the best managers in the game at the minute?
It's a minute in inter-county. Like, you have to, if you're talking about all 4 codes, John Kiley probably is up there. I would say Mick Bohan is probably second out of the 4 codes at the moment. Like, John Kiley, you have to say, is number 1 at the moment. But, yeah, he's been absolutely outstanding in general. But Mick Bohan, brilliant manager in general for Dublin. Actually, funnily enough, over the last few years, he's been linked to the Clare football job. And now Colin Collins has left, and he's won this All-Ireland. Like, could he go down to Clare? I'm telling you, like, he could. Like, he's a very good manager. But in Dublin terms, look, I think for him to manage the Dublin men's team, I think he needs another few years in the women's team. And I'll take a very good example in this. One of the best, other than Mick Bohan, the best ladies football manager that I've ever seen is Eamon Ryan for Cork. I know it might sound like a biased opinion and stuff like that, but the guy won, I think, 10 All-Irelands. It was incredible, really. But he went into the Cork men's backroom team, and I don't think he actually spoke much in the team. I think it was Pat O'Healy or Ronan McCarthy were in charge at that time for the men's footballers, but he didn't say much in the end, and it was kind of wasted Eamon Ryan being there. And maybe it might be the same with Mick Bohan. That's my worry with him. I think he needs another few years to develop as a brilliant coach with the Dublin ladies footballers to maybe go into the Dublin men's football job in the next few years. But a job like Clare, which he's been linked with over the last few years, I think he could go there. Like Colin Collins has left, the void is there. Like he could, I think he honestly will do a very, very good job at Clare. And the work that Colin Collins has put in and what he's left there, I think Mick Bohan will thrive on that. I really think so if he goes down to Clare. But I wouldn't blame him if he is on another few years with the Dublin ladies footballer. But back to the question in general, out of the 4 codes, I think he's probably second, but a close second. John Kiley's just an unbelievable manager for Limerick. But other than him, I think it has to be Mick Bohan, probably second in terms of managers at the moment.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think I would agree with that as well. Like you look at it, like I suppose Rory Gallagher, maybe if he was still managing, would be in the conversation. But obviously that's a touchy subject. But yeah, like I mean, you kind of look at it and think, yeah, I think Mick Bohan's definitely in the conversation. It'd be interesting as well to see if he if where he does go next. I would agree with you as well. I think him going to Clare would be a very good job. Like I think Clare would be definitely one of the front runners for Division 3. Like I know obviously I don't want to upset anyone. I know Seamus has in the past talking about Tailteann Cups and everything else. But if Clare were to end up in the Tailteann Cup, and that's where, I'm not saying they will, but if they were to end up there and Mick Bohan was to lead them to glory, like how good does that look for your first season? And I think he could definitely put himself in the conversation. But look, I think it's fair to say I don't think Desi's going anywhere anytime soon. And I think after achieving what he achieved this year, I think it's fair to say that we're all very much happy to see him sticking around. We will be talking about another manager who is going to be sticking around in just a couple of moments' time, but we will run through the intermediate final. First of all, big win for Kildare. They beat Clare by 2-11 to 2-10. Obviously, dramatic late goal in that game. And the junior final was down 1-7, Limerick 8 points. So thoughts on both of them 2 finals, first of all? I mean, some win for Kildare. I mean, dramatic late goal, and it definitely went down to the wire.
It definitely did, yeah. And we talk about stories with Hannah Tyrrell bringing her 7-week-old onto the pitch and stuff like that. Mary Holgrain, who's had alcohol problems over the last few years with Kildare, being goalkeeper and lifting the intermediate title and going up to senior. That's a story in itself. Brilliant story in general. And the photo of the day as well, I think Lauren Burke, the cornerback for one of the cornerbacks anyway for Kildare, she was stretched off towards the end of the game. She went back up onto the pitch and celebrated with her teammates, whether she was injured or not. It looked a serious injury, but she came onto the pitch and she was absolutely delirious afterwards. Congratulations to Kildare. Exceptional achievement. And probably why they won it is because Clare, unfortunately, I think Clare have had an outstanding year, and fair play to Wayne Freeman and his management team. And probably from a Munster point of view, I probably wanted Clare to win yesterday, but they just didn't score enough from play. They scored none from play in the first half. I think maybe a point or so, but they only scored 2-2 from play overall. And that in a final, ultimately, that's not good enough to win it. But what I would say, Fidelma Marilyn's been absolutely outstanding this year. She won the Zukar top scorer in LGFA throughout all the three levels. So congratulations to her. Chloe Maloney had a brilliant year as well. But you feel like Clare probably missed their chance in this one. You look at Cavan coming down next year. You have Westmeath there in intermediate level. You have Monaghan. So it's going to be very, very tough for Clare to get out again next year. But congratulations to Kildare. Brilliant achievement to get out of intermediate into senior. And they will go into the Leinster Championship now with your own County Dublin and Meath and Laois. And I think they'll fancy their chances of doing something in that group in the provincial championship. And fair play to Diana Hoare and her team in general. As for down in Limerick, again, another Munster loss. It wasn't a good day for Munster in general. Kerry, Clare and Limerick all losing. So And actually, I predicted all the Munster teams to win, and it actually went back on my face. But I was surprised, actually, Limerick didn't start Iris Keneally. She scored 3-10 from play in their run to the final. She only came on, I think, with 15 minutes to go. I actually don't know what the story was there with Limerick, but Down got that goal through Orla Swale at the end, and it was a brilliant goal coming off the bench, and I have to say. And what I will say about Down, Natasha Ferris was absolutely outstanding in the forward line for Down, and yeah, brilliant showing from Down in general, and yeah, brilliant win for Down, and yeah, it was a good win overall, and yeah, congratulations to Kildare and Down.
Yeah, Gavin says here, Dean Rock and Niamh McAvoy's child could be some Dublin footballer. Absolutely, yeah, definitely runs in the DNA. In fairness, with Barney Rock as well. To be fair, Lily says Mayo should be considered too, given the second half against Kerry. Yeah, it was a very good performance by Mayo, in fairness, against Kerry a couple of weeks ago, and I think they've definitely proven that they certainly are in the conversation. Is it fair to say maybe that the standard has improved in Leinster in terms of ladies football and everything else? I'm not too sure if we actually still have you there. I think we may have lost Matthew for once. For once, it's actually not me that's completely gone. So we'll wait for Matthew maybe to come back in there. Maybe I'll just run through some other comments in there. But no, look, in terms of Kerry in general, they certainly aren't going anywhere in terms of the ladies football big picture. They're definitely going to be thereabouts in the next couple of seasons. But yeah, I was just asking you there, like, is it fair to say the standard of ladies football in Leinster is on the rise and improving? Like, obviously we saw what Meath have done on the last couple of years. Kildare are now up there as well. Like, and how do you even think Kildare might fare in the ladies in the Leinster football championship next year?
It's going to be tough because you see Laois actually struggled last year after a brilliant intermediate campaign with the likes of Mo Norley and Oran Fitzpatrick. But to be fair to Laois, actually Oran actually went down to Australia. So yeah, that was an unfortunate loss in general for Laois last season. I think Aisling Donoghue didn't play most of the year because of an injury this season as well. So they were two huge losses for Laois. But if Kildare actually keep their panel together, like Grace Clifford's a key player in midfield. I think Ellen Dowling's very good in the forward line. Roisin Bird, Lara Curran, Mary Holgrain obviously in goal, Leisha Lennon at full back. If they keep all of them, I know it's not going to be possible because there's going to be injuries. There's going to be players travelling and things like that and other commitments and stuff like that. So it's going to be tough for Kildare in general. But I think if they keep the players I mentioned there all fit and all ready to go, I think Kildare could have a decent year next season because they proved it at O'Connor Cup level. For example, Leisha Lennon was part of the DCU team that won the O'Connor Cup this season. So she definitely has potential to do well in the senior championship. I think she marked Aoife O'Rourke in the O'Connor Cup final and did a brilliant job on her. And that's Aoife O'Rourke, an up-and-coming player for Galway. That's Galway, a senior team that reached the quarterfinal, nearly in the semi-final of the senior championship this season. So that's the level that Leisha Lennon can go up to in general for Kildare. So I think they could have a good year. But the thing is, I worry about them because probably the weakest team in the LGFA championship in terms of relegation and stuff like that this season went down in Cavan. I don't see any other weak side in general in the LGFA next year. In Connacht, of Galway and Mayo, I think that both of them will stay up. Donegal, Armagh probably will stay up as well. Laois will probably battle out with Kildare. Then you look at the Munster teams, Tipperary, Waterford, I think are too strong. Tipperary have a brilliant player, National Maloney. Waterford do likewise with Lauren McGregor and Kellyanne Hogan. So I think it's going to be a battle between Kildare and Laois to stay up in the LGFA championship next season. They have brilliant players, both counties, but I just think they're probably the weakest out of a very good bunch. And yeah, it's going to be tough for Kildare to stay up, but I just think if they keep their key players fit, especially the likes of Leisha Lennon, Mary Holgrain, Roisin Bird, Lara Curran, and Grace Clifford, I think they have a chance next year at doing something very good at the ladies football championship. Let's look at Meath, for example, in 2021, coming up from intermediate level, doing so well there. Is there that kind of potential to win an All-Ireland for Kildare? I'll honestly say there's probably not, but I think there is potential for Kildare to have a very good season, probably maybe a quarter-final, possibly at a push a semi-final. But Kildare, if they keep them key players fit, I think they'll have a decent enough year.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and I think it's great to see, like, with the ladies football championship in general, that Leinster is now so competitive, and you're having more teams up there. And I think if we were to see Kildare improve and teams grow and everything else, I think it'd be great to see over the next couple of years. Kieran McGeeney, he's obviously announced that he'll be staying on as Armagh manager. It definitely went down to the war, went down to a vote of all the clubs in Armagh. We've obviously seen this happen a couple of times down the years in multiple other counties. Obviously happened with Andy McEntee a couple of seasons back as well, and it went down to the clubs again this time around, and they did vote to keep him on. So McGeeney is staying on as Armagh senior football manager for another season. He's the longest serving inter-county manager in Gaelic football now, obviously with the fact that Colm Collins has stepped away. So thoughts on McGeeney sticking around for another season? Is it the right, wrong decision? Should they have made a change? But as some people have said, like, I don't think a change wouldn't have been a bad decision. But then again, who would you bring in? That's the big question, I suppose.
It is the big question. And what I would say, a lot of Armagh fans have been complaining about this, saying that he's won nothing and things like that. But what I will say to Armagh fans, be careful of what you wish for. When you look at McGeeney, he's actually brought Armagh from Division 3 to nearly the top of Division 1. I know they got relegated in Division 1 this year, but they're outright favourites to go up next season again from Division 2. So why is that? Because we're an elite level team. And I think McGeeney deserves more credit than what he's getting. Actually, this will be released in the next few weeks, a few stats from the Intercounty Championship this season. But in terms of least point defeats this season, Armagh are joint third, only behind Galway and Dublin. Dublin, obviously, no defeat. Galway, only 1 point. Armagh, their biggest defeat this season was 2 points against Tyrone. They aren't far away. They've lost 2 penalty shootouts. And I think McGeeney's doing a better job than people kind of give him credit for. When you look at the players that are there for Armagh at the moment, like Rian O'Neill, like Rory Gallagher, like Aidan Farker, they wouldn't have got to the levels they have got without Kieran McGeeney in charge over the last few seasons. He's definitely developed them Armagh players to a level where they could compete with the likes of Tyrone, over Donegal, the likes of Derry, the likes of Kerry, and the likes of Dublin. That's why, because he's kept them players being consistent year after year after year, consistently good performances. Rian O'Neill, let's be honest now, Rian O'Neill wouldn't have been probably a household name. He wouldn't have been named as a household name in his early years in 2019, possibly, or even 2020. But Kieran McGeeney got more belief into Rian O'Neill, and now he's a household name throughout the country. Why is that? Because Kieran McGeeney has got belief into these players and to work around with Conor Turbot as well. Look, he wasn't really a standout player for Armagh over the last few seasons, but McGeeney is still confidence into him this season. He did very well at the start of the championship. There is potential for Armagh to develop. I just think there's a few small things. Penalty shootouts is the one thing. And I will say this from Armagh, it's not McGeeney's fault that, they can't take penalties. That's down really to the players in general. Practice penalties on on the training pitch. You've lost 3 penalty shootouts. There must be something wrong here. It has to be clicking something is wrong. And actually, their only championship defeat against Tyrone, they weren't noting as well. They went down to 14 men after Rian O'Neill got sent off. They were down to 14 men, and that was their only loss of the season. They aren't far away, Armagh. I really don't think they're far away. They topped the group. They beat Galway. They only lost to Tyrone because of that sending off of Rian O'Neill. Westmeath, but we look at Westmeath. I know a lot of people questioned Armagh for the performance against Westmeath, but look at what Westmeath did against Tyrone and Galway. Then Armagh will say, look, Westmeath, you have to give them credit. They did very well this season and deserve their plaudits. Armagh got to the quarterfinal as top seeds for a reason, because they were the best in their group with Tyrone and Galway in it. And want to get rid of Kieran McGeeney because of that. Look, I just think Monaghan were the better team. They just wanted them more in the quarterfinal. That's just no issue from Kieran McGeeney's point of view. Like, Kieran McGeeney was all revved up. I don't think the Armagh players were as revved up as Kieran McGeeney in that game. And that's my honest opinion on this. I would have said it afterwards, just reactionary and stuff like that. I would have said probably it's his last year. But having looked at the statistics, having looked at Armagh's run this year, I just think it's down to the players. At critical moments, I don't think they've done Kieran McGeeney justice. And I just think he's taken him such a far distance that it'd be just ridiculous to bin him now. You know, Armagh are so close to maybe the promised land in order to be going to the final. And let's not forget, Armagh fans, I feel like, I know they've been very excited over the last few years. I just feel like in the last few years, they've been very, very entitled. They've won one All-Ireland, 2002. Like, what more do you expect from Armagh when you have the likes of Dublin, Kerry, Derry, the animal they are under Rory Gallagher over the last few seasons? You look at Mayo, you look at Galway, have all more better traditions than Armagh do. So, like, I actually don't know what Kieran McGeeney can do to win the fans. It's probably to win the All-Ireland, but I just think with the likes of Dublin, with the likes of Kerry, with the likes of Mayo, realistically, are Armagh going to win the All-Ireland in the next 2 years with a new manager? They'll probably be further off than when McGeeney was there if they got rid of him. So, in my opinion, I think it was the right move for Armagh to keep him. We'll see next season how he performs. If they don't reach a quarter-final next year, I think it's time for him to go. But this season, and having looked at the statistics, I think it was probably the right move from the Armagh clubs to keep him on.
Yeah, is there an argument though at the same time that they are playing quite within themselves? Like I do agree with you to a certain extent. I think like McGeeney has overall, when you look at where he's brought Armagh, like when he took over Armagh, like they were, a million miles off where they are right now. And I think when you look at, the fact that they have been losing in penalty shootouts and everything else, but at the same time, like they've been losing a lot of those penalties. It's been getting to penalty shootouts because Armagh have sort of lacked game management. They've lacked killer instinct in the closing stages. And the fact that McGeeney's been there so long and that still hasn't come, like that would be my worry from an Armagh perspective. Like they have a quality team from Rian O'Neill, Charlie O'Byrnes, Ethan Rafferty has come on. Obviously, he's looking like he might be out now next year with an injury. But you've got a lot of great players, Stephen Campbell, Rory Grugan, these lads. You've got Conor Turba coming through, Ross McQuillan as well. A lot of very, very good players. And I think like you would look at it and think, like, what is the potential with this team? I suppose it's one of them. We won't know until another manager comes in, but you could argue that maybe their style of football is what's frustrating the fans, I think. Because they do look like they're playing within themselves a lot of the time.
It kind of frustrated, and I think you remember this, Aaron, it kind of frustrated me at the start of the year as well that they're actually playing defensive football, because Armagh were probably the most exciting team last year. Like, I support Cork, you support Dublin, but everybody's second team last year, who was it? It was probably Armagh, because of the way they played football, the way they played on the front foot in general, and they were absolutely brilliant. But I just think, having thought about it, I think the way Kieran McGeeney has to win the Armagh fans is probably to win an Ulster title, because they haven't won one since 2008. Getting to a final this year was probably a good step in the right direction, but they need to go on and win it next year now. But Derry will be a tough nut to crack. They were very close to Kerry in the semi-finals, so that'll be tough in its own right. But what I will say, I know they play within themselves, and I know penalty shootouts and stuff like that, and Armagh fans are disappointed they don't get as further as they hoped with very good players in the team. But a very good example, and this is involving Kieran McGeeney, Kildare. Look at when Kildare got rid of Kieran McGeeney. What did Kildare actually do since then? 2014 did nothing really. 2015, okay, they beat Cork, a Cork team that got close to Kerry, but then they got slaughtered by Kerry in Grove Park. Kildare weren't really competitive until when? 2017? That's what the effect that can do. Kildare then were in a similar position to where Armagh are now. So this is what my point is. I just think it'd be ridiculous for Armagh to get rid of Kieran McGeeney now when they're on the cusp of maybe something special over the next few years. I just think a few tweaks. Go attack next year. I know defensively it does work to certain extents and things like that, and it worked to frustrate Kerry down in Tralee, and it worked to frustrate the likes of Galway or any other team in Division 1. But ultimately, that's not going to win you games. What won Armagh games last season in 2022 was when they went to the front foot, Case in point, remember against Donegal in the fourth round qualifier, they win the ball straight from the midfield, they kick it into Rory Grugan back in the net. That was Armagh in a nutshell last season. They played on the front attacking football. That's what they need to do next season. But I just think if they are going to have a new manager in charge, the work done by Kieran McGeeney over the last few years to get Armagh to the position that they are in the last few years, being competitive in Croke Park, will be wiped. Because what will the manager actually bring next season? Who else could you? And you mentioned at the start of this discussion with McGeeney, who could you bring in as Armagh manager? McConville's with Wicklow, you can't bring him in. McAtee's with Sligo, can't bring him in. Who honestly would you bring in as Armagh manager? Aaron Curran, I don't think he's proven enough. Look, I know Joe Kernan's a bit over the hill. So I honestly don't know who Armagh could replace, have an adequate replacement to replace Kieran McGeeney. But I want to know Armagh's thoughts on the Kildare situation in 2013 when they got rid of Kieran McGeeney in general. Because once Kildare got rid of him, Kildare weren't as competitive as they hoped to be. And that's where Armagh would have been if they'd been Kieran McGeeney this season. That's just my honest opinion on it. I think they are closer than what people describe them to be. But I just think a few tweaks will be needed to get them up to the next level next season.
Yeah, like could you argue though, like with that Kildare side, like they did have a very good team, and they were sort of built off the sort of early 2000s, and he obviously still had some lads playing in there from the 98 team and everything else. And even in 2010, in fairness, they actually got beat by Louth in the Leinster Championship and went the long way eventually to get to an All-Ireland semi-final. Not downplaying the achievement in any way, but look, I think, like I'll just run through some comments here. Maybe Yonder says McGeeney is too negative in the quarter-final against Monaghan. Rian O'Neill spent a large proportion of the game in the half-back line. Absolutely ridiculous. Get him out and the positive manager in. Shawnee says McGeeney is holding them back, too cautious. The Derry or Monaghan would do, but Derry or Monaghan manager maybe means there would do a better job with them. Enda McNulty says Tom O'Kane. I mean, it's a tough one because I think the worry is that he's just been there for a while. Like, and to be fair, I suppose like you kind of look at it in two parts. Like Armagh have only really been a contender, like obviously not a serious contender, but a team that's getting to a quarterfinals and competing at in Division 1 for about 2-3 years now. So maybe you look at it and think one more season. If there's not an improvement this year, then maybe you make a decision. But I would just worry at the same time that I think like they, I look at them and I don't think they're getting the best out of their players. I don't think this current management are getting the best out of their players. Even the likes of Rian O'Neill, Stephen Campbell, with the way that they're playing at the minute. But look, we'll have to wait and see what happens. I think they just need to find balance. Like last year, they were very attacking. They shipped in a lot of goals, obviously, at the other end. And I think that's why they've gone full circle. They just need to find balance. Look at Dublin and Kerry. I know they've much, bigger panels, bigger pick of players and everything else. But those teams have balance. Even when Tyrone won the All-Ireland a couple of years ago, they had balance between attack and defence. And I think that's what Armagh need to find going into next year.
And probably the advantage for Armagh next season, and people don't play this as well, they're in Division 2 where they're clearly the best team in it. So they could put out maybe a few B players, maybe a few fringe players, give them a bit of experience, and they're still top Division 2 with ease. A bit like Dublin and Derry this season. Because Armagh, let's be honest, Armagh probably well clear of everybody else in Division 2. So that's the luxury that Armagh have next season. And they could go full throttle then in the Ulster Championship. So I think, honestly, if McGeeney's staying on next year, I think I totally agree with you. If Armagh don't do something miraculous next season, like reach an All-Ireland semi-final, win an Ulster title, one of those two, I think if McGeeney doesn't do any of those two, I think he's gone. But if he does, then we could come back to this video and say, I was right. That's the thing with this reappointment with McGeeney in general. So, like, I just think it was the right decision to keep him on. There's no point in stalling a project when you're just in the middle of it. Like Armagh haven't been contenders. I don't know. Like they were contenders in the last 2 years, but when you look at the years beforehand, 2021 and 2020 are write-offs. Really, they're COVID championships. 2019 they got beaten by Mayo as a young raw team in McHale Park. 2018, okay, they were a raw enough team against Roscommon as well. Roscommon were just more experienced on the day in Portlaoise then. Like, Armagh have gained a lot of ground over the last 2 years, and you're just going to wipe that out to get rid of your manager. You're just going to go back to square one then. That's my point. Now, I just think McGeeney needs to stay on another season. If it's another quarter-final appearance and only the quarter-final, then I think it's probably time for him to go. But I just think for now, he needs one more season to prove what he can really do with this Armagh team.
Yeah, like if it had been up to me, ultimately, I probably would have looked at it and thought it does look like maybe a change would have been the best decision. Like, I think maybe someone even like a Malachy O'Rourke coming in could have done a very good job there, or someone else of that nature. But at the same time, I can understand why they have kept them on. And ultimately, look, I think next year is going to be the decisive year. I think if they don't get past a quarter final, and they're not competitive, look, Ulster is going to be very difficult. There's obviously a lot of very good teams in there, but I think if they're not, if there's no progression next year, I think they will look to make a decision. In fairness, but obviously have to wait and see. I suppose we're now going to discuss obviously the news that came about obviously in the last week or so regarding our good friends Off the Ball. Obviously they've decided to put all their content obviously behind the paywall. Like, I wasn't sure really whether to discuss this or not, to be honest, but I know like a lot of followers on this channel would watch Off the Ball. I know myself, I would watch them quite frequently. I don't know about you, Matthew, but obviously they're probably one of the biggest leaders in terms of sport in Ireland. And I would say, to be honest with you, they definitely are the best. Like, I think their coverage is spot on. They get a whole host of different people on. They have a whole host of different podcasts. They're brilliant at promoting Gaelic football, ladies football, Irish soccer, League of Ireland. Like, they've got pretty much everything, going on. But obviously on I think it was on Thursday evening, they made the decision to put all their content behind the paywall. They sort of done it overnight as well, which was a little bit odd. There wasn't really much time for for the listeners really to sort of get accustomed to that. And look, I think at the end of the day, everyone has their own opinions about this. Like, I remember last year, I was thinking about doing something similar originally, and then I decided not to do it, mainly just because I wanted my content to be seen. I wanted the channel to gain exposure, and I felt like if I had gone behind the paywall, it wouldn't have got that exposure. And I also do think as well, there probably is a lot of stuff for fans to pay for nowadays. When you look at GAA Go, when you look at the rising costs of jerseys, the rising costs of tickets, the rising costs of traveling to games and everything else. But I suppose in general, like, you've got GAA Go on the go, like you've got all, club championship prices for watching club championships on clubber.ie. Like, there's a lot to pay for nowadays. And I suppose, what were your thoughts seeing, I suppose, Off the Ball making that decision?
First of all, I'm part of an organisation that has actually put some content behind the paywall in articles and stuff like that in the Southern Star. But that's for a totally different reason. That's for buying the paper and stuff like that. That's West Cork content. Like, if let's say a small story happens, we just put that for free. But if it's a match report for West Cork or Cork Championships, we put it behind the paywall. And that is fine enough, in my opinion. That's fair enough. But with Off the Ball, look, I think over the last few years, I think Off the Ball has been excellent, with the likes of Owen Sheehan, Ger Gilroy, Tommy Rooney, Ashton O'Reilly, potentially Shane Hannon. I think they've been very good over the last few years. But I just think, and this is unusual to say this about a Kerry man, since Owen Sheehan has left Aaron, I think it's gone downhill. That's my honest opinion. I just think Owen Sheehan was very good. He knew how to mix, humour with banter, with seriousness as well. I think he was an excellent host for Off the Ball in general. But I just think, as soon as some presenters have come in, like Johnny Ward, there's a lot of talk about him in group chats, and I think he's probably one of the worst presenters that Off the Ball has ever had. And he's there now. And that's probably one of the reasons I wouldn't pay for the content behind the paywall at this present moment in time. I was thinking about this, will I pay for it? But I'm thinking, I'll ask you this, Aaron, I don't know the full details of this. Is the hurling pod, the football pod, going behind the paywall?
Yeah, I suppose that we won't know until possibly. I don't even know if they're gonna have another podcast now that the season is obviously finished up. So it's honestly hard to know. Like, I know on their channel they're putting up 2 little clips here and there, like 2-minute clips and everything else. But like, to be fair with what you've said, like I suppose like with certain YouTube channels or newspapers and everything else, like I suppose I can understand if you want to put certain things behind a paywall and everything else, because obviously you want to sort of grab some sort of revenue, I suppose. But I think to put everything, like, I think the only thing that's not gone behind the paywall is ladies football and ladies soccer. So at least they're still giving a lot of exposure to that, at least. But everything else does seem to have gone completely, completely into a paywall. And the fact that they left such a short period of time as well, like, just a day to do it, I just thought it was very disappointing, considering it is one of the leaders, in my opinion, in terms of covering Irish sport. And I just thought it was quite disappointing, to be honest.
The thing is, well, you must think about this as well. Like, Joe Gilroy actually he was announcing this on the night, and I was watching that clip in detail with him being with Joe Malloy in the studio, and he said they're not government funded. Do you know the media organisation that is government funded? RTE. And they don't produce any GA content. They don't produce any sport content. They are, in terms of producing content, and me, Seamus, yourself, John, everybody around this podcast community have said the same thing. RTE have been nothing short of a shambles in that department. Off the ball, in fairness to them, have been good in covering, whether it's rugby, whether it's ladies football, ladies soccer, GA in general, the intercounty, the football pod, the hurling pod. Off the ball has a load of content, and I could see from that point of view why they went behind the paywall, because they're not government funded. They are Will O'Connell and all, but confirmed going behind the paywall, I would imagine. So I don't know what I point now. It's a tough decision, Aaron. I'll have to think about this over Christmas, will they? But what I will say, if they put like a promo code or something like that for their subscribers, then I'd be probably intrigued. Because what GA Go did, they did the early bird pass at Christmas, meaning you could buy GA Go for €60 rather than €80 for the year. The same for Rebel Online, actually, the new Cork streaming service at the club championship. I was thinking, will I buy it? I probably should, seeing as I'm a Cork man. But then Patrick Mulcahy announced, there's a promo code, you get 25% off if you use the code early bird, all in caps. Use that, got 25% off, job done. €60, fine. Grand, grand to get something off in that. But I just think if Off the Ball do something similar to GA Go and Rebels Online, that's apartment, I think they'll drive a lot more subscribers than they do at the present moment in time. That's my honest opinion. I think give something back to the viewers. I think they should do that. But then again, I do understand why the hurling pod, the football pod, and all of them are going behind the paywall. Because they're just not government funded, and they need to get funded in some way, one way or another. And this is the way they're going to get funded. The thing is, entertainment is great and all that, but it's not going to pay your mortgage. It's not going to put food on the table. They're not funded by any government. RT are a different story. They're government funded, so that's why their content is free. Off the Ball are government funded. And probably isn't the reason why they're going behind the paywall. I can understand it from that point of view. I still think it was disappointing to leave a day's notice. But then again, I can absolutely understand where Joe Gilroy is coming from in putting it behind the paywall.
Yeah, I think at the same time, though, they still have 5 or 6 sponsors in there. And I'm pretty sure that they'd be on the radio as well. Like, I'm pretty sure they've still got a lot that's coming in. You've got ad revenue, obviously, from YouTube as well. Like, the views that they generate is really good for a lot of the stuff that they put up. They've got like a huge amount of content going out all the time. So I still think at the same time, like, there still is a lot of sponsors in there. Do you know that way? Like, I think for smaller creators, I can understand that to a certain extent. As to why, like, obviously, unfortunately there are bills to pay and everything else. But I think at the same time, like, I think there needs to be a bit more fairity sort of involved in there. And I think when you look at the amount of sponsors that are involved with Off the Ball, I think it is a little bit poor, but I do understand your take at the same time. Like, they're obviously not government funded, and that probably is a big reason for it.
I'll ask you a question, Aaron. If myself, Seamus, John, like for example, if I put my stats behind the paywall, do you think that's reasonable?
I don't know if it is. I don't think it is, to be honest with you. I don't know. Like, to be fair, everyone has their own opinions, and I think, to be fair, like, at the end of the day, with me, I'd only ever focus on what I do. Like, if anyone else wanted to do whatever they wanted to do, I'd be like, cool. You know, like, that's up to you. That's completely up to you. But I do think at the same time, like, especially for the game and everything else, like, there should be promotion. Like, there should be more promotion of the game, and it should be out there. Like, people should be able to see it. People should be able to access it. I understand if you wanted to put certain things behind the paywall, but certainly not everything. I think, in my opinion, and I know for myself anyway. Like, generally, like with other podcasts and everything else, I very rarely ever actually subscribe. I think I subscribed to Redman TV one year, and I think I cancelled it then after a year. Like, I mean, there just needs to be value there, and I don't know, but look, we'll see what happens, obviously, over the course of the next while. But I'd certainly be curious to know what people in the comment section think down below.
The thing is, actually, there's a few creators that have been in my podcast and your podcast that have gone behind the paywall in the last few years. I can think of two off the top of my head: Davey Rispin from We Are Meat and Dan Bannon from Loud and Proud. Would you think it's acceptable for them to go behind the paywall?
To be fair, like, they're much smaller. Like, they have a much more niche audience. Like, obviously, with the fact that it's with it's obviously focused on meat, it's focused on Loud, it's focused on just the two counties. It's probably not over on a whole spectrum. And I think as well, like, they've started with that from day one. So that was their clear intention. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to start with. Even like Colin Parkinson with Smaller Fish GA, like, that was the intention from day one. That was the focus. I can completely understand it. Obviously, times change with the cost of living and everything else. Like, prices are on the up all the time and everything else. So there's a lot more to pay for. But I do think there's other ways to do it. In my opinion, with sponsorships or everything else, like, that's just my opinion. But I can understand it from their point of view, because, like, in terms of their audience, they're probably never going to generate like a huge amount of audience where they can get huge sponsors, or they can get ad revenue around like that, because obviously they've kind of smaller audiences. But I think for bigger creators, like Off the Ball and everything else, and I think there should be an element of fairness.
Possibly so, yeah. And what I'm thinking as well, and maybe another impact in this, and what George Gilroy was thinking of COVID. Do you realise the amount of money that people lost because of that pandemic? It seems a long time ago now, but probably the effects of that. I'm no Minister for Finance now, so I'm not an expert on spreadsheets and cash accounts and things like that. But I would say, from a general point of view, COVID wiped out a load of people's daily income in that particular time. Like, Off the Ball, for example, most of them, except for Gerard Gilroy and possibly Owen Sheehan, were working from home. So possibly that's another reason why it's gone behind the paywall. I do think it was bad form to do it without a day's notice. I think it was bad form for their viewers in general, because they've had a high viewership over the last few years. Like, I remember going to college over the last few years. I remember the year I went to UL in second year. Every morning I turn on YouTube to listen to Off the Ball. Whoever's on, Gerard Gilroy, Owen Sheehan, Tommy Rooney, Ashton O'Reilly, whoever's on, I just listen to it, because there's bound to be something good on it. And now it's not there anymore. It's going to be taking an adjustment now, Aaron. It really is. Will I pay for it now? Look, I'm still on the fence. I don't know, will people in the comments actually help me out here, but actually, geez,
maybe we'll get Jerry Gilroy on the phone to you, give you a sales pitch there or something.
Exactly, yeah. It's going to be a tough ask, really. Actually, the likes of Jerry Gilroy, Owen Sheehan actually follow me on Twitter, so maybe I will pay for it.
There we go. But sure, look, we'll definitely see what happens. Obviously, with the cost of GA Go and everything else, there's certainly a lot to go with. And maybe with the fact as well that they cover so many sports, it probably would have been good if they had different packages for different sports, maybe, and actually probably would have been a better business model as well. They actually probably would have made more money that way. But sure, look, we won't give them any more tips or anything of that nature. But there we go. Jack says, see any club games at the weekend? I was watching Ballybowden and Ballymun Kickham's, obviously. Plenty of great talent on show. But yeah, Matt, I think obviously the club championships are up and running, like we were chatting off air there, and we were chatting earlier as well with the Carlow finals already happened, Wexford final next weekend. So before we know it, like the club championships, they come thick and fast, and yeah, like the majority of them are underway now.
They are, yeah, and it's actually mad to think that the Carlow Championship is all done and dusted. It's like, I don't know about this. I really don't. I think the club season's probably come in a bit too quick. I get it from both sides of the fence, actually. And me and Seamus had a bit of a discussion on this on my podcast last week before the ladies' finals. Seamus actually said that the calendar should have all our finals in July, the whole of August off. Like, I don't know about that. I think it'd be very good for the players. It's great for player welfare. But Kevin O'Donovan, the Cork CEO, actually mentioned it over the last few weeks. If they were to have August off, July, at the end of July off, how would you finish the Cork Championship then? Because there's 3 group games, there's 3 knockout games then. It'll almost be like a situation in the Inter-County Series this year where teams are playing in 4 weeks in a row. And ultimately, that's not right on players either. So it's a difficult one. It really is a difficult one. I probably, like, the calendar needs a whole revamp. I will say this, because it's affecting clubs later on in the year. I just think the pre-season competitions, I know the McGrath gave Cork a lot of confidence. It did give Longford a lot of confidence, and it won them a trophy and all that. But I think you'll think the same thing, Aaron. I'd like them wiped. Simply. Yeah. I think there's no need for them. I really don't. It's just adding more competitions for players in general. And there's the college competitions as well as the league. That's wrong in general that is happening at the same time. Like, we go from college competitions and league into the inter-county summer championship, then into the club championship, and then even around Christmas weeks. I remember last season, the Ballyhale and Ballygunner hurling semi-final was on 7 days before Christmas Day. That's just absolutely mental, and it just epitomises how long the GAA season actually is. When you look at other sports, rugby takes serious amount of breaks. Soccer takes a break around June, July in particular seasons where there's not World Cups or Euros or whatever. Maybe the GAA should follow the same template in providing, breaks for players, be the player welfare. Like, we discussed it with Shane Walsh and David Clifford over the last year or so. David Clifford, I know he's been absolutely incredible, but when you look at his year in general, won the All-Ireland with Kerry, went straight into club action with Fossa, went on an All-Ireland run into January. He and Paulie had to cancel the Kerry team holiday to Mauritius because of the All-Ireland run with Fossa. And then he went straight into the Alliance League campaign, straight into the All-Ireland, and he's back with Fossa now currently again. Like, where's the break? Shane was the same. He had, a brief holiday in Australia, but other than that, full on with Kilmacud Crokes, with Galway, and that's probably why he tired out once it came to the crunch game against Mayo in Pierce Stadium. So it's an interesting topic. I think the GAA players, listen to Seamus, they deserve rest, but I can understand the point of view of Kevin O'Donovan and he's saying, how would you finish all the games within September, October, November before the provincial championships kick off? So it's a really difficult one. It's a difficult one to juggle. So it would be interesting to hear your points on this.
Yeah, like I think my understanding in Dublin is like why they had the championship so close after the All-Ireland was just to get over and done with. So like a lot of the county players could play their championship games, and then once the club championship is over, then they can then go on and go on holidays and everything else. But at the same time, I think if you were to ask them, would they rather go, would they rather wait until September? I think a lot of them probably would. Like especially a lot of the county players who will want to go away in August, will want to travel, go away with their families and everything else. And unfortunately, a lot of them won't be able to do that if they do choose to play for their club. So yeah, like I think it definitely should be spread out a lot more. Definitely should be spread out more, and there definitely should be more breaks involved. But look, it's one of them where I don't know what you do. Like, do you try and limit club championships, so you try and make them just knockout games. So you reduce the amount of games, but then again, you're taking away from club players and everything else. It's just damned if you do, damned if you don't. There doesn't seem to really be the right solution, especially for county players. And I suppose if you are going to go deep in your county championship, that is the problem. Like when you come back to your club,
It's going to be an even more big problem if you go into the provincial championship and eventually the All Ireland series. Like another example, Conor Glass with Watty Graham's Glen. He plays an All Ireland final in January, and Rory Gallagher gets him out within a week. Conor McGuckie in the same. Like, where's the break? I know Conor Glass is an outstanding player and has the energy of a leopard in general, but to put him out 2 games in 2 weeks, especially after losing a final in dim circumstances against Kilmacud. I mean, it was, I just think the players probably need more, watch a few games on Clubber TV along for the kid. Yeah, Clubber TV seems to be good, all right, in general, but I just think the players probably need the breaks in general. Like, and then again, like Fossa could go on a run in the intermediate championship, but there's no more breaks for the Clifford brothers. Like the Clifford, when's the last time they had a break? Honestly, Aaron, when was it? I think it was it's a long time ago anyway. And player welfare has to come in general, but like following the templates from other sports. What do you think of that? Like rugby has some breaks, soccer has some breaks, athletics, hammer throwing, whatever sport it is, and GA doesn't seem to. So,
I think like I don't really watch that much rugby, so I can't really comment on that. But I think with soccer, like they obviously throw the international football halfway through the season. Like I don't think you can do that with the GA. Obviously, like you can't throw like to be fair, they used to do that in previous years where you would have senior club championship games on whilst the All Ireland is going on, and obviously we're seeing that happen with other counties. But like, do you stop the inter-county for a brief period of time to focus on club and then go back to county? It's just completely, be a nightmare for managers and everything else. So it's just such a hard one to know what the template is, to be honest with you. I think like a lot of I think there maybe should be a rule that club championship shouldn't start till a month at the very least after your county gets knocked out. That's what I think. Maybe I would gets knocked out or wins the All Ireland in Dublin's case. Like I think 2 weeks after, it's just, I don't know, because you look at a team like Ballymunkickham, so many great players in that team: James McCarthy, Paddy Small, John Small, Dean Rock, Evan Comerford, Philly McMahon still in there, and he obviously have a few lads who played the other night, but you can see the same fluidity just isn't there with Ballymun that when those lads play for Dublin. And that's obviously because these lads are only probably only came back training during the week, and it's just not really fair, especially for a team like Ballymun, that I think if he gave them a bit of time to train, gave them a bit of time to get back into the team, they could go on and do special things. I really do think so. But unfortunately, because of the fact that, there's so much disruption throughout the year and everything else, we don't get to see that. But that's probably something I'd go. I don't know what you think about that yourself.
That seems like a good plan, all right. And what I was hearing from Seamus, I don't know if this right, Aaron, Paddy Small actually pulled a hamstring in the game against Ballyboden.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
And Seamus actually said about the podcast, you're going to see more of these injuries.
You will. Yeah, you will. Like, like we've seen Ethan Rafferty obviously pick up an injury as well. Like it is happening. It is happening. And to be fair, you can't fault lads for wanting to go out and play for their club. Do you know what I mean? You want to go out and wear the shirt. You want to go out and play the club championship and everything else. And for Ballymun, it would mean so much. Obviously, Ballyboden, Con Baskel's in there. They want to get back on top. And to be fair, he had a very good game, very much carrying on his momentum from the All Ireland. And for a lot of other players as well, your Brian Fentons and everything else, you want to wear the jersey. You want to get back out there and try and win your side the championship. But unfortunately, that could come with injuries and it could come with problems. And to be fair, I think that's something that's happened to Conor O'Callaghan down the years. Like with his injuries, I think he's played some amount of games from Coola and hurling football, Dublin. So, I think it does catch up with you, unfortunately.
As well as that, actually, I don't know, is this a clever tactic in general? It's down here in Cork now. Brian Hurley is out of the first 2 games for Castlehaven. You remember him in the All-Ireland quarter-final against Derry. He just didn't look fully fit. James McCarthy, the Castlehaven managers, actually left him out of the first 2 games. They drew the first game to Carby Rangers, so they are in a bit of trouble, but they'd be fancy to win the second game. The third game then is a crucial game against Clonakilty. They'd probably put Brian Hurley in for that game. What do you think of that? Leaving players that have a bit of niggles out for the first 2 games and then putting him in when it really matters?
Yeah, it probably does make sense. Like even with Kilmuck Crokes, like they're nowhere near their best team just yet. Like they're still easing a lot of lads obviously back into the team, and it makes sense. Like, you know, like you've had a lot of club lads there who've been doing the business. You trust in them to get the business done in the early parts, and then if you need to bring them on, you bring them on. Obviously, with group stages, you can afford to lose a game. You probably only need to win 1, maybe 2 at a stretch. But yeah, I don't know. We could go on and on about this all night, but it's such I think personally they should definitely do something like a month after a team gets knocked out. There should be a rule or something like that, in my opinion. But I don't know. Like again, the players should definitely be consulted. There should be surveys and everything else. I don't know if there is, but that's probably what should happen. Like players, you know, we're 2 years into the split season now. I think players should be consulted. County players, club players, are they in favour of it? Are they not in favour of it? And whatever the motion is, maybe that's what we go off.
The thing is, as well, a lot of people are complaining about finals not being in September and being traditional and things like that. What I will say to those sorts of people, think of the players. Think of how much the players are putting in year in year, whatever county you're from, Cork, Kerry, Dublin, Offaly, Longford, or whatever. Look at the amount of effort them players put in, county and club. You're expecting them to play club and county in the same time in August and September, and cut club, until October, November, December. That's not ethically right either. The club players need as much time as the county players, because that's where the GA roots start. Club. Counties, all glitz and glamour and stuff like that. I've enjoyed Cork reaching the All-Ireland quarter-final. You've enjoyed Dublin reaching the All-Ireland and winning the All-Ireland in general. But where does it all start? In the club. That's where, you know, some of the partiality has to go to. It has to go to the club. Like putting club championships in October, November, December, madness. It's just madness. You know, and I think people need to realise that. And that article from Martin Brady from the Independent didn't nail it either. What was he thinking? You know, it's very, very poor in general, but I just think the club players need more recognition right now. I just think it's really wrong what people are saying, that we should go back to September finals and August finals. Even presenters and things like that for RT are saying we should finals in September, August, and whatever. But think about the club players. Why don't RT put club matches on Saturday nights now? Why? Yeah. You know, that's the thing. And yeah, it's good. Look, the thing is, the club versus the county, the club should always come on top. I know the inter-counties, but yeah, club, I think that's the main thing where you start with, and that's the main thing that should matter when coming to these arguments.
Yeah, no, look, and I'd agree as well. Like, I think July is the right time for the All-Ireland finals, in my opinion. Like, I think, look, you could argue that the championship needs to be spread out a little bit more. I think you could get rid of pre-season competitions. Be interesting to see how the new format goes next year. Will it be the same? Well, obviously it will be the same, but will we look at it in the same way as we did last year? Because I think we'd all agree that it worked very well this year. But I would agree as well. I think All-Ireland finals in July work really well, in my opinion. I know there's a nostalgia feeling about having them in September and August and everything else, and we're looking back through memories, and on this day and everything else, we're dragged back to those moments. But at the end of the day, it's just a different time of the year. There's nothing huge. The weather is still very much the same. If anything, it's even worse than it actually should be in September. It should be better, but a lot of the time it's actually worse. But yeah, but there we go. But look, we'll wrap this up here anyway. Cheers anyone who did tune in. I suppose before we finish, maybe moment of the weekend from the ladies' football action.
probably Hannah Tyrrell bringing her child onto the pitch. Brilliant moment in general for her, and player of the week as well has to go to Hannah Tyrrell, hasn't it? 8 points in an All-Ireland final in one half of football. Incredible.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree as well. And Dublin obviously winning the All-Ireland in general, I think my moment of the week, and just watching that first half performance in general was exceptional stuff from a Dublin perspective. But yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. Cheers very much, Matthew, for coming on. Make sure to check out the Gaelic Statsman podcast when you get a chance. Make sure to leave a like on this as well. Hit the subscribe button when you get a chance, and we will speak to you all later.